Pazuzu. Pazuzu. The Exorcist stars Ellen Burstyn, Max von Sydow, Jason Miller, Linda Blair, and is directed by William Friedkin, and it's the story of the exorcism of a little girl named Reagan who is possessed by a demonic presence. Oh, now we're getting into some serious shit right here. Today we'll be looking at what's considered the scariest movie of all time. Do I agree with that statement? Well, let's take a look at the film and find out. From the opening scene until the last shot of the movie, this film had me feeling disturbed. Something about the statue in the beginning sends chills down my spine. A great introduction to what's to come later. Ellen Burstyn plays Chris MacNeil. She delivers an incredible performance as this distressed mother. As she gets more and more scared of her child, we do too. You can't help but sympathize for her. In fact, you feel bad for all of these characters. Jason Miller plays Father Karras, a priest who's been going through emotional issues due to the death of his frail mother. He's also very likable. His heroic death in the end, where he has the demon take his body only to sacrifice himself to save Reagan, is one of the saddest deaths in any horror film. My favorite guy is Kinderman. He's cool. I wish I could watch a movie with him. God damn it.
Oh, wait. You like movies? Very much. Well, I get passes to the best shows in town.
Alright, I'll stop beating around the bush. Now to talk about the reason why most people watch this film. The Exorcism. Linda Blair plays Reagan MacNeil, a girl who gets possessed by a demon, whose name is Pazuzu, but that's never mentioned in the film. She doesn't get controlled immediately. It gradually builds up to it. She might feel sick, curse, piss herself, maybe let out a growl, but in the end, we see her completely transformed from the sweet little girl we started off to a vicious, foul demon. The movie is a little slow. However, in this case, it helps the film. You never know when something's gonna happen. For example, at one point, Chris is trying to calm herself down, and out of nowhere, we see Reagan walking down the stairs like a spider and coughing out blood. It's fucking weird. The scares are not in your face. If you're looking for a film that'll have tons of loud noises with spooky music and gory images, you won't get that here. Yes, the film has those things, but they're done differently. Most of the time, we don't see any of the deaths on screen. They all happen off camera or are inferred. Sometimes what you don't see is scarier than the actual threat, because your imagination can create worse and scarier images out of your own personal experiences or beliefs. The special effects are great, the actors are incredible, but Friedkin's choice of shots and his decision to hide many things from the audience is what made The Exorcist such a big deal in 1973. At the time, there weren't that many films that dealt with the idea of demonic possessions, unlike nowadays. There's points in the film where you see the demon that's possessing Reagan, Pazuzu, flash on the screen for only a frame. This is extremely creepy.
Sheriff?
The first time I saw this, I didn't know that would happen and thought I was seeing things. Overall, do I think this is the scariest movie ever made? No. I don't believe there is a scariest movie ever made. We all have different things that trigger our fears. Now, do I think it's one of the scariest movies ever made? Yeah, I can agree on that. This one doesn't make me jump out of my seat or gross me out, but instead it has a deeper effect. This movie begs the question, do you believe in the devil? It's the kind of movie that ends but still keeps you thinking. The scene with Karras' mother on the bed creeps the fuck out of me. And this famous shot of Father Merrin outside the MacNeil residence gives me chills. Basically, this movie doesn't have many scary images, but when it does, it'll spook you out and give off a very unwelcomed feeling. I feel like I didn't talk enough about the movie, but it's the kind of thing where it's much better if you go off and just watch it yourself. The Exorcist is a brilliantly directed film, with amazing acting, awesome special effects and makeup, a spooky score, incredible sound design, and terrifying cinematography that'll send shivers down your spine and will come into your thoughts as you're falling asleep. I give The Exorcist 6 out of 6.6 Pazuzus. Alright guys, I hope you enjoyed the review. Now, it's time for a segment that I like. So, grab your notebook, grab some popcorn maybe, and get ready because it's time for... In the late 1940s, a young 14-year-old boy, whose name has been kept anonymous but referred to as Roland Doe, had an exorcism performed on him after allegations were made that he was possessed by a demon. In 1971, author William Blatty wrote a novel inspired by the case titled The Exorcist. He changed many details from the case, including switching the genders from a boy to a girl. The book was at the top of the New York Times bestseller list for 17 weeks, and remained on the list for 57 more weeks. It sold more than 13 million copies and, basically, it was a huge success. Blatty adapted his book into a screenplay, and after getting rejected by many studios, Warner Brothers greenlit the project and gave the directing job to Mark Rydell, after having Stanley Kubrick, Arthur Penn, and Mickey Nichols turn it down. Blatty insisted on the studios replacing Rydell with William Friedkin because Blatty wanted the film to have the same energy as the 1971 film, The French Connection. The studio didn't want Friedkin, but after Blatty's constant persuasion, Friedkin got the job. When it came to casting Regan, over 500 girls auditioned. Pamela Ferdin almost got the part, but was turned down because they found her to be too familiar with the public. Denise Nickerson, who played Violet in Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory, was also considered, but dropped out of the list because her parents found the script too disturbing. Friedkin was having such a hard time finding an actress to play Regan, that he considered auditioning adult dwarf actors. In the end, Linda Blair got the role after having her mother personally take her to the audition, because her agency didn't want to send her. For the role of Father Merrin, the studios wanted Marlon Brando for the role, but director William Friedkin insisted on casting someone else because he didn't want to make a Brando film. Jack Nicholson was also up for the part of Karras, before Friedkin cast Jason Miller following a performance of a New York play he was in. Friedkin claimed he wanted Miller to play the part because he reeked of failed Catholicism. Miller had never acted in a film at this time, so this became his first on-screen role. For the role of Chris, Jane Fonda, Audrey Hepburn, and Anne Bancroft were being considered, but after getting a call where she stated that she will get the part, Friedkin hired Ellen Burstyn. Friedkin originally planned on using Blair's voice for the demon's dialogue and just deepening and roughing up in post. However, after trying this out, he felt there wasn't that power he was looking for, so he casted radio actress Mercedes McCambridge to provide a voice for the demon, who adapted to a diet consisting of raw eggs and whiskey, plus chain smoking in order to get the raspiness we hear in the final film. Warner Brothers originally excluded her name from the end credits. McCambridge wasn't happy with this and sued Warner Brothers and demanded credit. Later on, William Friedkin stated that she wanted the viewers to think the voice was coming from Linda Blair, but changed her mind after the film's release. The initial shooting schedule called for principal photography to last 105 days, but ended up running for over 200 days. Friedkin, like many directors at the time, decided to manipulate his actors to get genuine reactions from them. He did this by violently yanking harnesses that Blair and Burstyn had to wear, which caused back injuries that were later revealed not to be permanent. Slapping real-life priest Father William O'Malley right before a take to get a solemn reaction, which offended many of the Catholic crew on set. Firing a blank without warning to generate shock from Jason Miller during a take. Telling Miller that the pea suit, which was used as the vomit, would land on his chest when it was really aiming for the face. And building Regan's bedroom inside a freezer so that their breath could be seen on camera. It was actually so cold to the point where one morning the crew found a thin layer of snow on set. So yeah, this guy was pretty harsh. The opening scene was filmed in Iraq, but because US didn't have any diplomatic relations with Iraq, they had to take an all-British crew and could only be allowed to film there if they included classes for Iraqi filmmakers on how to make fake blood. The scene with Karras falling down the stairs was filmed in Georgetown. The stairs had a half-inch thick rubber padding, and since the house is set back slightly from the stairs, the crew needed to build an extension with a false front to the house. While filming, Georgetown University charged $5 to watch the stunt being performed from the rooftops. The scene where Father Merrin arrives to the McNeil residence was filmed on the actor who played him, Max von Sydow's, first day of work. This shot is used in all the film's posters and media releases. What most people don't know is that the scene was inspired by the 1954 painting by Rene Magritte, Empire of Light. Speaking of Sydow, makeup artist Dick Smith had to use more makeup on him than the possessed Linda Blair because at the time, Sydow was only 44 but needed to look 74. The film was released December 26th, the day after Christmas, and received mixed reviews. The New York Times called the movie a chunk of elegant occultist claptrap and practically impossible to sit through, while other critics went on to claim that it was the scariest movie they've ever seen. Roger Ebert gave the film 4 out of 4 stars and wrote in his review, "I'm not sure exactly what reasons people will have for seeing this movie. Surely enjoyment won't be one, because what we get here aren't the delicious chills of a Vincent Price thriller, but raw and painful experience. Are people so numb they need movies of this intensity in order to feel anything at all?" As the years pass by, there have been a higher number of positive reviews, and the movie has made it in the hundreds of scariest movies ever lists. Martin Scorsese placed The Exorcist on his top 11 scariest horror films of all time. The film was even nominated for 10 Oscars, making it the first horror film to be nominated for Best Picture. It won Best Adapted Screenplay and Best Sound Mixing. It also won 4 Golden Globes, Best Motion Picture, Best Director, Best Supporting Actress, and Best Screenplay. The film was heavily censored. For example, the spider walk scene was deleted right before the 1973 premiere because Friedkin felt it happened too early in the film. The broadcast version needed to have Reagan's dialogue toned down, so Friedkin himself re-recorded the line because he was unwilling to work with McCambridge again. A ton of small edits were made to the film over the years, but on September 22, 2000, the extended director's cut, also known as the version you've never seen, was re-released in theaters with everything added back in, along with some small changes. In 2010, Warner Brothers released a Blu-ray with both the extended cut and the theatrical version, in case you're curious about the differences. And that's the basic history of the film. Now let's go look at some facts. On the first day of filming the Exorcism sequence, Max von Sydow was so disturbed at Linda Blair's lines that he blanked out and forgot his lines. The scream of the demons exiting Reagan was the sound of squealing pigs being driven in the slaughter. Right before going into Reagan's room to start the exorcism, Father Merrin asks Chris if her daughter has a middle name. He asks this because in the Middle Ages, Catholics would give their child several names because they believed it would make it more difficult for a demon to finding out the child's real name and controlling their soul. You see that white banner in the language lab scene? The words on it are Japanese and translate to "help me." When the film had its theatrical release, many town councils suggested a ban for the showing of the film. This led to the Exorcist bus trips, which would take groups of people to the nearest showing of the film. The teaser trailer for the film was banned in many theaters, even though it mostly consisted of images of the white-faced demon. It was considered too frightening. A regular filmgoer fainted during the film and broke his jaw on the seat in front of him. He sued everyone involved in the film, claiming that their use of subliminal imagery made him pass out. The studio avoided court by giving the filmgoer an undisclosed sum. This guy wasn't the only one who passed out. It was actually very common for members in the audience to faint. Many paramedics were called to help people that have fainted, or the ones who went hysteric. Once adjusted for inflation, The Exorcist is the second top-grossing horror film of all time. The first being the 2017 version of Stephen King's It, which was announced 3 weeks ago to pass the 500 million mark. Director William Friedkin asked Reverend Thomas Birmingham to exorcise the set, but Birmingham refused, believing that doing so might increase anxiety on set. He later came to visit and gave the set its blessing along with a talk to reassure the cast and crew. Linda Blair had a good chance at winning the Academy Award for Best Supporting Actress, But after it was announced that Mercedes McCambridge was actually the one who did the voice, the Academy scratched out the chance for Blair to win. However, since by Academy rules, once someone is given a nomination, they cannot withdraw it, so they kept her on the nominations list. After the film came out, Linda Blair received many death threats from religious zealots who believed the film glorified Satan. So Warner Brothers issued bodyguards for 6 months to protect her. The demon lies to Father Lancaster Marin when he claims he's the devil.
It's ourselves. I'm Damien Karras.
And I'm the devil. Now kindly undo these straps.
He's actually named Pazuzu.
Pazuzu, you ungrateful gargoyle! I put you through college, and this is how you repay me?
Which is the name of the king of demons in Assyrian and Babylonian mythology. Even though the name is never mentioned in the film, it's mentioned in the sequels. The only time you see Pazuzu's true form is when you see it flash up on screen. During the filming of St. Elmo's Fire, Joel Schumacher was filming at Georgetown and tried to get permission from the Jesuit priest faculty at the school to film there. He was quickly rejected. Schumacher complained and said, "You let Bill Friedkin film The Exorcist here in '73, and one of the characters in that movie said, 'Your mother sucks cocks in hell.'" One of the priests responded with, "Yes, but the devil didn't win in their movie." RIP. In 1961, author William Blatty won $10,000 on the Groucho Marx show, You Bet Your Life. After being asked what he was going to do with the money, Blatty responded by saying he would take time off work to work on a novel. The novel he was talking about was, you guessed it, The Exorcist. While filming the 1974 film Alice Doesn't Live Here Anymore, Ellen Burstyn went to see The Exorcist opening weekend. While in the theater, a woman fainted during the arteriogram scene, and right before Burstyn went up to her, she realized that if the woman woke up and saw her, she might panic thinking she was in the Twilight Zone or something. So she asked someone else to help the woman recover. Speaking of the arteriogram scene, that bearded man who's assisting the doctor is Paul Bateson. He was an actual X-ray technician at NYU Medical Center, where the scene was filmed. In 1979, Bateson was convicted of the murder of a film critic and was sentenced to 20 years in prison. He was also a suspect for the murders of 6 men who he would pick up from gay bars and have sex with, then murder and dismember their bodies and put in plastic bags for fun. Even though investigators believed his story, he was never actually charged and the murders technically remain unsolved. The story involving the bag murders inspired the 1980 film Cruising, which is also directed by William Friedkin. Now for the pretty disturbing facts. During the year-long shoot, many strange things happened. This included the deaths of 9 people involved with production, a mysterious fire that destroyed the set except Reagan's room, and the sudden deaths of Jack McGarren, who played Berkey Dennings, and Vasiliki Maliaros, who played Father Karras' mother, who died before the film was even released. And that concludes this month's horror-related videos. I hope you guys had as much fun watching these as I had making them. So, have a happy Halloween, go carve a pumpkin, watch some old horror movies, get some candy, and until next time, don't forget to please be kind. Rewind.
Hey kid, you want some chocolate treats? Damn it. Where's Alex?
Alex? You okay, buddy? Well, I got some...
Sit down!
Huh?
Sit down!
Yes, sir. I will do that immediately. I like what you did with your voice. Going for that the Blair kind of look, am I right? Look at the time. Don't you think your parents are gonna be...
Kenny!
What?
Kenny! You owe me!
Technically, you didn't really do what I asked you to. So I don't really feel that I should...
No! I want my candy!
I can't give you your candy.
I want my candy!
I don't have your candy. I ate it after I realized no one would show up. I'm sorry, but if you want, you can... Oh. Alex, why would you do that? Listen, I'm not really liking this whole Exorcist act here. I'm just the guy stuck between two buns. So if I would have to kindly ask you... Alex, no, Alex! Alex, as soon as I get back, I'm gonna kick your ass.
Because of that, it's scary!
Toilet paper?
Who the fuck are you?
Heads up. Ooh, candy. Oh, what the fuck?